I am here, ladies and gentlemen. This is some very quiet music, but tune in there. Okay. Good. I'll stop at 8 minutes. Hi, Daryl.
Hey,
Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest is DARYL TEWES, and it's really cool to be here. And I'm just bringing up one more thing that I need to work with, just in case. All right. So that was really nice. Robert Jacobson is here already.
hey, Robert.
Hi, Robert. So, yeah, that was you and Stuart
Liebig.
Liebig. He's a really good player. I heard him with Ellen Burr
Hmm.
at your series, and Wayne. He played with Wayne too, didn't he?
Right, he was doing double duty that night. That's what happens when you get to be as good as Stewart, and everybody wants you on the gig.
Right.
Stewart is actually one of the first uh, musicians that I met uh, when I sort of started breaking out of my little local, uh, concerns and my started on my adventures in more, exploratory and experimental music. So uh, it's poetic that we started with a clip that featured Stewart. Also, uh, interesting that we started in the Battery bookstore in Pasadena that's operated by Richie West. So as you could tell from the video, that's a very informal setting. And one of the things that Richie provided in that bookstore in that context was absolute freedom to be as experimental as you wanted to be. And, there aren't that many places where you can book a duet of electric bassists. So we had we took advantage of Richie's largesse, and I don't think he's booking too much there these days, but it was one of the hallmarks of that space that you could really stretch out, bring something new, and it didn't have to be polished, and it could be very much a creation in and of its time, and and a complete experiment. So that's what we saw about 8 minutes of.
Right. I see you did a set. You probably didn't stop.
Yeah, I don't. Are you hearing all these notifications that I'm getting? Because they're really
Yeah,
annoying.
I am
I'm
hearing.
sorry about that. I don't know how I can turn them off, but probably more fumbling than I'm willing to do at this point in front of an audience.
We won't worry about it. Hi, Breeze. Breeze is here. Hello. Um, yeah. Where are you from? You're from somewhere in the south, right?
Uh, Southern California. Uh, I grew up in the town of Sylmar, which is the northeast end of the San Fernando Valley.
You know what?
Um,
I heard like a little southern drawl from you.
oh, that may be ancestral. I don't know. Um,
Oh,
I have a strange speaking voice. It's not something I'm entirely comfortable with. So thanks for drawing attention to that.
well, I just have a good ear for like little.
Yeah, you probably do. You might be hearing some Texas that bleeds in from my mother. That.
Yeah, yeah. It was very little bit. I mean, I'm from Boston, and you hardly notice except for a few words. Like, okay, the thing that you pull out of a bureau.
Uh-huh.
To me, it's a draw.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is very
Yeah,
Bostonian.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, not a big deal, but kind of fun. So you're from Sylmar. Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
very. My husband's from. Well, he moved around while he was growing up,
Hmm.
but he's a Southern California guy too.
Yeah. It was you know, I was born in 59, so grew up in Los Angeles of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And Sylmar being a bit isolated geographically and culturally, you know, one of the hallmarks of living there was, as a youth, you learned to do two things. One was make your own entertainment, because there wasn't that much around to consume. And two was, as soon as you were capable, get out of Sylmar. And, you know, not just on a permanent basis, but just to get in a car. I mean, everybody that I grew up with had their driver's license within a week of their 16th birthday, because it was the most important thing to be able to get beyond the city limits and start figuring out, you know, what the rest of the world had to offer.
Yeah. Did you
So
play bass as a kid too?
I did. I started playing bass. I have you know, my standard line is that everybody of my generation who plays bass has an older brother who's a guitarist or a drummer. And
And
those people need bass players to play with. So
was
you
that the case with you?
get recruited. Yeah, my older brother is a guitarist, and although we only seldomly played in bands together, I certainly couldn't have taken up the guitar with much confidence, because he was already very accomplished by the time I was ready to hop on that train. But I, you know, had a band with 3 friends, and, you know, we all begged our parents for equipment one Christmas and
And voila,
assembled
the band was
assembled.
born.
Yeah. And so haven't looked back from there.
You know, that's good. My husband had well, he was interested in drums when he was young, and his parents said, "Well, go get a drum teacher." So they didn't help him, and he didn't know what to do, how to do it, so he never ended up with it. And then, he never really got into it. Years later, when he met me, many years later, I actually so his last job was a lighting board operator on the Tonight Show, but he was never a musician. And so one holiday, I got him a drum set, and he was so shocked. It was so out of his reality that he literally sat there for 5 minutes, not even react. He was
More
just
than,
like,
huh?
he was trying to get what was, why did she do this? But anyway, I wanted to get him more into jazz, because he was a real rock and blues guy, collected records, and but really didn't like jazz. But I just figured, well, he just hasn't heard jazz he likes.
That's right.
So that it succeeded. He does like some really pretty progressive drummers, which is pretty cool.
Well, I love drummers, and I also I think that everyone should have a chance to explore music, you know, and one of the ways of doing that is just to have instruments around. You know, you don't have to
Yeah.
arrange for lessons or and I think, you know, I was blessed in my family uh, to have parents who were not professionally musical, but they were socially musical. Um, my mother in particular had a song for every occasion or circumstance in life. You know, she just, that was part of her basic communication style, was to think of a song and sing a few lines, you know, as she was doing things around the house or whatnot. Or if you had something that happened, you know, she knew the song that, you know, had the response in it.
Right.
So being musical that way was something that I've only come recently to realize was not, like, not everyone had parents that sang all the time, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
tap danced in the kitchen while they were cooking or things like that, you know. So I consider that to be pretty formative, and I consider myself to be pretty fortunate to have had that experience, because it makes you relax into that mode. And I think as a teacher of singing, you probably know that singing is a primal force in the human body, and if you can tap into it, then it can unlock a lot of aspects of your personality, and there's opportunities for growth, right? I think. And so if I was a better singer, I would probably do that full time, because it's I think it's what every other form of music kind of aspires to at some point. I mean, there's refinement, and then there's like basic impulse, and singing can be both, and it can bring you down to that basic impulse of humanity, right?
Yeah.
Move air through your body to express something. So that's pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, well, it's it's communication. It's
Yep.
one of the main chakras of of us. So yeah, it has a lot to do with our health and yeah, health spiritually and physically as well.
And
Um,
that feedback loop is immediate. When you make music through your voice, you feel it in your body. And I think that that's one of the most important things to learn as a musician on any instrument, is that music succeeds when you're able to create that feedback loop, or really it's kind of loops within loops, where you get muscle memory, you get cognitive abilities.
yeah,
All of these things are happening. And for me, improvised music is the pathway that I've chosen
yeah,
to, to sort of build that capability within myself. And
yeah,
I think it's a good one. Improvising with people is one of the best ways to get to know people in a hurry. And that's the other aspect I think is very valuable, is the sort of community side of it. It's making art with other people and getting to know them in a deep way. So I don't know too many other ways for me personally that I could make that happen. So that's why I keep at it.
yeah. I agree with you. Lots of agreement there, and I definitely want to get into talking about improvisational music, which I have in the past with various people, including Ellen Burr. Um, Alice Block is here. She said kvelling over here. Toby Simmons, who's a fan and a PR person. Jim Getch,
Okay. Hey, Jim,
right?
from Santa Fe, right,
Right.
Jim?
Yeah. Roberta Arnold. Um, Greetings, everybody. Um, and Breeze, I'm interested why he brought this up. He said, "You're a lefty. Ask about it, please."
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's important about that, but um, and I'm not a total lefty. So if you noticed in the video, I play guitar in the standard position. So to me, that is left-handed, because all the fine motor coordination is what you do with your left hand when you play a string instrument
Yeah.
tradition. But I think for some people that's different. But I tried to play left-handed because I identified as a lefty and I couldn't do it. It just felt wrong. So I switched back, let
Oh,
myself off the hook.
that's kind of interesting. I've known left-handed drummers a lot,
Mm.
and I'm sure I've known a few left-handed guitar players. They do appear, obviously, and you can see them. Do violinists play left-handed anytime?
I asked someone who was uh, a bassist, an orchestral bassist, and she said there's no such thing as switching over and playing the other way.
Huh.
It's like they don't support that.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but
no.
so I'd be interested to hear of anyone who knows of anyone who does play a
Yeah.
cello or a bass and fingers the strings with their right hand instead of their left hand, and bows, with their left hand.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it that I can recall.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about on the, like earlier side here is your series, your recent
Mhm.
series. You probably have, I'm guessing, like me, have created other series, but this series is really cool. It's downtown in, I guess it's the Arts District. Is that the Arts District? It's kind of a
No, that would be further south where, you know, um, there's a name for this area on the map, but I forget what it is. I would just say it's north of Chinatown, between Chinatown and Lincoln Heights. And, that's the best description. It's on Spring Street. And the venue is called Oracle. Um, and they've been there for only about a year and a half. So it's a fairly new establishment.
oh,
And I got started there. Many folks on your call might know the name Sunspace, which was Noel Rhodes' set up in Shadow Hills area. And when that physical space closed, Noel moved his Unusual Tuesdays to Oracle. And so when I went to an Unusual Tuesday, he pulled me aside and said, well, they're looking for someone to start a jazz series. And I said, I wouldn't call what I would book jazz, but I'll call it a new music series and I'll do it. So that was the beginning of that. I have Noel and Nora Keys, and now I've got a little bit more relationship with Jennifer Czar, who operates the space. So they've all been very supportive of getting this off the ground, and very grateful to have that space. And one of the things that makes it possible is that I don't have any overhead except the volunteer time that I'm willing to put in. And I have a couple of volunteer helpers. My longtime friend Larry helps out at the door, and the Oracle employs the bartender, but Mike has been terrific in supporting the musicians and music, and he's an enthusiastic person to have there, which makes a big difference. I don't know if you've ever gone to do a gig where you just didn't feel wanted or appreciated, and
over
by
the years.
and that's something that I have experienced, and I never want a musician to feel that way. So I have the freedom there to devote almost all of my resources to supporting the musicians who walk through the door and help them, frictionlessly get their performance up on the stage. So the less they have to worry about, the better I know the music's going to be. And I just try to greet them with a great attitude so that, they can perform without having to absorb negative energy or worry about things, or, how many people are going to show up, or all those things. I mean, I can't stop them from worrying about their own stuff, but I try to take out as many other things as I can out of the equation. And so far, I feel like it's paid off. Everybody that I've booked there has really delivered exceptional performances. So can't complain. You're getting what you pay for when you go there. And we're able to pass on 100% of the donations to the musicians. And that's a difference, that's a freedom that you don't get very many places. And
That's for sure.
yeah. So
I was looking to see. Yeah, so I'm performing there on
yep,
March 20th um, with my group, The Moment, which has Gary Fukushima on keyboard and Chuck Manning on tenor, Brad Dutz, who's visiting on percussion, and that one will be Jamie Rosen on guitar. We used to have Jeff Richmond, but he's not up to playing right now. and and then but Brad Dutz also will be the first or second
right,
as well with Ben Rosenblum. Is that who it is?
right, yeah, with Ben, and I'm not sure if someone else is joining them. I don't have it in writing yet. So,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
gonna be fun.
with Brad, it's going to be great. With you, it's going to be great. Chuck Manning, you know, another terrific player. So yeah, that's going to be an exciting night.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I'm
I'm
so
looking forward to that, and I love Brad. And that group actually has played together for, I mean, on and off for, I don't know, it's got to be 8 years, 9 years, something. We made a recording, and the more that we played, like at Sunspace, we were playing every few months, and yeah, we were really gelling as far as the improvisation goes.
Mhm.
Not just within the songs, but stretching, which was, I mean, that's just so much fun. And I don't do that a lot with a lot of different people. I usually improvise within the songs, in the
Sure.
structures of the songs. But so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and you touched on a really important point that is a big part of uh, my motivation is that this music gets better the more people play. When you have an ensemble or a group that you're used to playing with, um, nothing uh, elevates the quality of the music faster than playing live gigs. And so for me, having the ability to bring people in, to do that is really exciting because like I said, everybody's bringing their A game regardless. Um, but the more people play and the more people learn about how to work in that room in particular, the more comfortable they are with the experience, the music just gets better and better. Um, so my hope is to keep bringing people back, so that we get a lot of repeat performances. If I had the I would really love to be able to do some sort of residency type programming where, the same ensemble or the same core performer has some predictable cadence of performances, whether it's, but I don't think that's going to happen at Oracle because there are just so many different programming imperatives there. Maybe I could carve out a time, but it would be sort of a niche time, like, a weekend afternoon or something. But as the series grows and as I'm hoping post COVID that more venues will be available for people to perform in as well, because I think a lot of, as the audiences by necessity, for safety reasons shrunk, it caused a lot of people who were able to book, not to be able to book anymore. So I'm hoping that will all come back and that that our series will be, part of a network of places where people can perform and perform often, because I think the more frequently you're able to perform, the higher the quality of the music. And
Yeah.
so, you know,
Are you, did you consider connecting with the Angel City Jazz Festival?
I have it on my list of things to do because I think we might be an interesting sort of side. We could afford to do things that folks who were coming to perform at that as part of that festival. We could be an outlet for their more experimental, impulses or novel combinations of people. People might be in town for that festival who haven't ever had the chance to play together. So I think that would be something interesting to pitch, a very low risk situation for people to come in and try something new that could only be done that week, or something. So yeah, I should reach out to them. And we are seeing a lot of folks from the Bay Area and San Diego and places that are more than an hour away, who are hoping to come and find a spot at Vernacular to play. So
Yeah.
that's pretty exciting as well, to be able to bring in and present
Yeah.
people from a larger circle.
Yeah.
But we'll never run out of local people. I mean, there's just so much talent in this city.
I know. This the Kulaks thing, as I explained to you, it's an unusual situation. It's not like Oracle. It's not like you can charge at the door and then give the artist the whole thing. It's not. I mean, that happens, but then the owner needs money to
Right.
operate and run his videoing and stuff. So even though it's a great deal for that, it's like somebody from San Francisco actually reached out and was interested in the new music night, and which I would love, but you have to want that at this point. I I really would like to have new music in there because it's in North Hollywood. I mean, such an easy location. You usually don't have new music in an easy location like that in LA. And I want people to stop by and see. I mean, so many nights at Sunspace, I was in the audience. Roland, you were there too, and Dan. And we'd just be sitting there with this amazing music happening, and I would think, this is it's this little tiny place with like
I know.
10 people in it. This really has to get out there, man.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think one of the valuable aspects of what you're doing on your noontime shows is giving people this chance, like you and me, to have this conversation of, how can we help build a network? Because every venue is going to be different. It's going to serve people in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And we need more of them, obviously, not fewer. There are, 4 million people in Los Angeles, right? So the potential size of the audience is enormous, right? And I feel like it's like the music has potential well beyond what it's reaching now. And part of that, I think, has to do with instilling and supporting a more confident community.
Yeah.
So many of the people I know who play music, and this is not to denigrate in any way, and this is true across artistic communities. This is not specific to any music community. They're reflexively apologetic about what they do. And that, to me, kind of triggers a reduction in resources and interest, unfortunately. So I've been well trained to be apologetic about what I do, and I try to work against that. And one of the ways I work against it is not apologizing for the work that I present and promote. In fact, I'll do the opposite and say, you know, it's absolutely world-class music. You won't find better, you know. So cheers to that. So, you know, trying to expand and lift each other up rather than, you know,
Make excuses.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just making excuses for me. It's that, like I said, you know, it's the training that, you know, many people get when they step off the main roads, you know, that you're taught that what you're doing is somehow, because it's risky, that it's somehow worth less. And that's, to me, I'd like to flip that and say, you know, let's celebrate that risk taking, even if it fails, right?
Yeah. Well, that seems to be an American what's the word? You know, I don't want to say all Americans are like that. Look at us. You know, we're not like that. But it's like in the history of how it's the thinking, how it's come down. And I mean, I know you and I and other people like us are working really hard for years and years to turn that around. And you know,
Yeah, it's kind of amazing to me, you know, as a case in point, that a couple of weeks ago, you know, I was able to present Elliot Levin coming from Philadelphia, and the band included Bobby Bradford and Don Preston. You know, so that front line represents, you know, 150 years of combined musical experience, right? Professional musical experience, 150 years. And, you know, they're willing to get up on the stage and do that at a little bar, you know, in north of Chinatown, right? So that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I just think that in a city of 4 million people, that, you know, we ought to be taking advantage of that opportunity to say, hey, if we can get Don Preston to play, let's have him play as much as he wants to, you know, or Bobby or any of these folks.
Yeah, I've always believed that the answer to a lot of things like this is in marketing. The thing is, I haven't personally come up with an idea that I've acted on to bring more light to this. I mean, just
Well,
here.
this is an idea that you've acted on right here.
Well, yeah, but this doesn't. This like what I'm thinking is this conversation, this music really has the ability to be embraced by young people coming up who are kind of rebellious and interested in different things, different styles of music, and how to actually give this to them. And so, you know, I mean, it would be stupid. I mean, the only things I've thought of is like jazz musician. I mean, this was in the past. Jazz musician cleanup day. You know, jazz musicians get out there and clean the streets, or you know, jazz musician on the sidewalk day, or you know, like actually make a movement. I mean, Angel City Jazz Festival is a pretty big movement, you
Right.
know. But make a big movement that you can't help but being noticed, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that I think would be um, something that could make an inroad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm, uh, I'm very much in favor of reaching out and connecting with, you know, the folks who are doing this type of music or related forms, in other venues in other parts of the city, some sort of umbrella organization or mechanism. It can be very lightweight, but just to help get us talking to one another and to, again, flip the script, because wherever there's a feeling of competitiveness or turf, I think that shrinks the scene. That's my personal opinion. And if we want it to grow, we have to sometimes, overcome our initial impulses to protect what's ours, and instead, open that up.
Yeah.
And so, for example, one performer, I think, was reluctant to tell me that they were, somebody that I had booked, were reluctant to tell me that they had booked another gig,
Yeah.
And my feeling is like, I'll promote it, come to Vernacular on Monday night, go see them at this other joint on Wednesday night or Friday night or whenever they're doing it. Because again, 4 million people, the potential audience is huge.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to, and aside from that, if you put the musician at the center of that conversation, do you really want to cut people out of work? Do you really want to reduce their opportunities to play? There's got to be a better way to do it, right? I don't want to restrict the number of times that people can play at my series or anywhere else, right? The more, the better. So I haven't quite figured out the mechanism by which we can all start talking and building on each other's successes. But as that conversation evolves, I definitely would like you to be a part of it, because of the, everyone in town, and you've got quite a bit of organizational capabilities. So I think if we start, being able to connect with some key people, I'd like to see the scene grow. I'd like to see it stretching into parts of the city that maybe my clientele doesn't normally go to. Like to have more cross-pollination across the generational divide, like you were mentioning. Also, we have to come to grips with the fact that LA has way too much segregation in terms of the neighborhoods and the places that people feel comfortable going, and we have to figure out a way to mitigate against that. So there's all kinds of ways to grow here, and that's, the possibilities are huge.
Yeah. I know. I was thinking, the world stage would probably be a place too, because they have a mixture of stuff, and they definitely have, bold experimental things too, and high quality.
Yeah. I mean, not everything has to be an experiment in form or content in order to be of interest. I mean, I kind of put injected that word into what I do, but I try not to set any limits in either direction as to what people do. The real bottom line for me is the music that I like. And again, I don't want the series to just be about my taste, but music that's performed honestly, there's no gimmickry involved, or it's kept to a minimum. Transparently, the mediation is as minimal as possible, microphones, PA systems, but other than that, you're getting what's coming from that person and their instrument. So that permits a degree of honesty and a real level of communication between the audience and the performer. Whether they're doing something that's traditional in nature, untraditional in nature, taking risks, or I mean, I think there's always a big risk. That shouldn't be a factor. But anyway, like I say, I wouldn't want someone to be deterred from seeking me out for opportunities because they thought that what they did wasn't far out enough or too far out. I'd like to hear everything, and I'm looking for sort of a higher level set of qualities. It's not about the content. It's not about how many notes outside of the traditional scales you're playing, right? That's not really what makes music interesting, right?
Right.
It's the qualities that the performer brings to that,
Yeah.
that really make the difference.
Yeah. Scott Hustis, he said, do you think it needs a new name? I mean, jazz is a good word for it, but it's old. Human nature tends towards a new name for the new sound of now. When you think of it, Scott, tell us.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people
New
within,
music is right. New music.
yeah, a lot of people within the jazz tradition who came up through it and were trying to, who faced real limitations based on that word in terms of how much money they could earn, regardless of the size of their audience and their reputation in the world. A lot of them tried to stop using the term jazz, and I don't know that how many of them succeeded, because most of those people we still think of as jazz artists. And if you go to a record store, do people still go to record stores? You have to wander over into the jazz section to, that's so. I'd rather not try to fight against that myself. I've never been a jazz musician, so anybody who puts that mantle on me doesn't understand jazz, because I've never been able to play it.
Vinny, when I booked Vinny Golia, I said, do we call it avant-garde? What do we call it? And he said, let's call it new music.
Yeah, that seems to be that's what I settled on, just because then I don't have to worry about, like I said, whether people are flatting their fifths or, whatever, some kind of musicological definition. I'm interested in the people.
Yeah.
And their personalities that come through.
Speaking of that, I'm going to play a little bit of Brad Dutz.
Why not?
Yeah, since Brad will be coming to Oracle, and Brad will be playing with me and Ben Rosenblum. Brad Dutz, the Dutzer, he's been coming out with some really cool stuff lately. I mean, almost anything could we could play almost anything for
Brad. I mean, Brad is one of those people you could go back 40 years and he's just been relentlessly and successfully creative in a lot of different genres, certainly. So
I mean, here's one with just him. It says, episode 3, we feature the lower part of the ranch, which has the barn that was formerly actually home to 2 steers. That's definitely a Brad thing. Okay, so here we go.
Well, he's up there in Washington, right? Yeah. With his property that he's.
Hello. Welcome to the Obliteration Bell Barn. The barn that was already on the property that I've converted into a found object space for live performance and recording, and they give you a lot of variety. Metal objects, bamboo, plastic.
Wow.
You'll see I've just spent about a year and a half hanging up things to be played and performed on in the barn here. This is the Obliteration Bell Barn, and I'm in the northwest corner on my table of really pots and pans. These are ceramic, these are metal. Here's a metal one. These are aluminum. These are bunt pans. And then the steel drums. Just play a quick little piece. This would be the northeast corner of the barn. This area is a large gong, a whole bunch of pots and pans, fire bells, a couple more bunt pans here, and then a lot of bell plates on the wall. So I'll play a little piece with the cookie tins. Now we're in the southwest corner of the barn where I have made a tile marimba, got a giant saw blade, then there's some pots and pans on the windows as well as some wine bottles. Then over here we actually have clay bowls. So I'll play a little piece over here. Now, this is more of the central part of the barn where I've actually hung Chinese gongs. These are tuned gongs, but above me you'll see rototom spokes, and these are oil weights, the pieces of metal here, some artillery shells, some saw blades. So here's a little piece with the gongs. Here's a table of just found pipes on this new percussion mounting system. It's really fun to just play the pipes on the foam, but we also have the mounting system. Here I've set up two long plumbing pipes to dump into pots and pans. Here's a marble, with a bell. Here's a golf ball coming your way. And then the metal ball is even louder. Here was a metal one.
Brad Dutz, man, he's going to be at Oracle with Ben Rosenblum and also with me.
Yeah.
March 20th.
It's great it's very gratifying to see Brad, who I've known for, decades, working in an environment that scales to his abilities and imagination, right? The guy's always been immense in his interests and abilities. And now on this property and with this series of videos, you can see just how expansive his capabilities and imagination are. And it's I think he's truly in his element. And I hope he comes, I hope he's able to shrink and focus enough to, rein it in on the Oracle stage, because it looks like he's getting pretty open and free,
I was thinking, wait,
how can we contain him
how
now?
can he even choose what to bring?
Yeah.
There's
Well,
another.
he doesn't have to. He could probably just play whatever's in the
That's
bar and make music,
You know who was like that? Was the Hector, the Brazilian composer, Hector, was that his name?
Oh, Hermeto.
Yes, Hermeto Pascoal. I
Yeah.
was with him at a camp once. He played everything. I mean,
Right.
he would play this musically, though. He was
Right.
amazing. But
Yeah, he's a treasure. I'd love to hear him and Brad sometime, and that would be an exciting.
God. There's another guy, Scott somebody on the East Coast. He's a woodwind player, multi-woodwind, and he has a barn filled with all kinds of woodwinds, and that's what he does. He improvises. He makes recordings like Brad. He's very interesting. I interviewed him like in the first year, I think. Somebody introduced us. Really interesting guy. I should hook them up because they would, if they don't know. Scott Robinson. Thank you, Joyce. Do you know of that name?
No, that's a new one for me. So I'll have to look that up. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, he's really an interesting guy. Really interesting. And he kind of sells these memberships that you kind of get this kind of insider view of what's going on in his universe. It's really, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Hermeto Pascual. Thank you for putting that up, Robert. Yeah. Maybe we'll watch that in a little while. So, I know we said we'd talk about, or I said we'd talk about improvisation, but it's kind of this open-ended question at this moment in time because we haven't just been speaking to something that leads up to it. Anything you want to say about improvisation?
Well, I kind of gave my little stump speech about like what I value from it, which is that sense of community and that in parallel that as a vehicle for building deep relationships with people rapidly, right? You quickly find out what makes someone tick if you're both improvising, honestly and transparently in the moment. So for me, it's, the other thing I'd say about it is that at Vernacular, as well as in the larger world, there are people who have varying levels of, traditional mastery or even improvisational mastery. And to me, what's interesting about that is that it's always, there are some people who are reliably great improvisers. I About 3 weeks ago, guitarist Fred Frith was in town, performed at Zebulon, and he's known as a composer. He was at Mills College for many years. He started as a rock musician in England. Has had just an amazing career, and as a soloist, he improvises, for an hour or so on the guitar, and it was really. I mean, he's always great. He's reliably, you're going to hear some great music when you go hear Fred.
Yeah.
And he did not disappoint at Zebulon. In fact, he was better than I've ever heard him before. But against that baseline of excellence, right, there are moments that get created in improvisation that are still unpredictable, unplanned, unknowable in advance, right? So, use a slightly cynical term of like sort of your trick bag, if you're going to make a career out of this, that you have to know how to get out of those, you have to have something up your sleeve, something that a base to establish that baseline. And people have varying baselines, right? For someone like Fred, his baseline is very high level, right? He's never going to be, but some people, they may not quite have that. They may be improvisers in a different way, where it's not about their technique, or it's not about, but what you do get in an improvised setting, if the right rapport is there, if the right conditions are there, you get creativity in the moment. And that, like I said, comes from the personality and from the operations of those multiple inner and outer feedback loops. And, I guess what I'm saying is, one of the things I like to do or think about doing with my series, or when I'm playing with other improvisers, is create the conditions that increase the likelihood of those wonderful chances of the air and the soul of the person and the audience, all of those things coming together, so you have those peak moments.
Yeah.
And everybody who does anything is capable of creating those.
Yeah.
Some people have, like I said, a really high baseline, and they know how to get to that spot. They've trained themselves to get to that spot very quickly. Other people, you have to be a little bit more patient. And but I'm all for that. So that's my talk on improvisation for today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it's I think when I've played with people, I mean, I think that what you're speaking of for me is um, shows the different perspectives that humans have. And uh, as an example for myself, when I've played with different people, I see that within different musicians. You
Mhm.
know, some musicians have the capability of being open at a bar line. They it feels like maybe it should have four more bars, and they do it, and it's okay with everyone. And some people don't do that. Um, so um, also, I mean, this is kind of a rabbit hole, but you know, talking about uh, why this kind of art is good for humanity to experience. Not only just kids, but everybody to experience. What qualities it enables people to take take into themselves and heal themselves.
Sure.
All kinds of things like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that has a lot of fingers everywhere, right? Um,
Right.
so, uh, yeah, it's just I don't know how. I mean, on the other side of it, I don't know how people don't even see that. I don't even know. I don't know how that's possible, because it seems so obvious.
Well, I think you touched on something super interesting too, in that, uh, to for music to work as a sort of personal healing, or however you want to think about that, and back to the my personal upbringing with something as simple as my mom singing in the kitchen, right? Just um and musical instruments and singing, because uh they're associated with ego expression. You think you're good enough to do something, right? So there's, on the other side of that ego expression is fear, right?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm not good enough,
right.
right? So I think, uh and there's been a mystique around improvisation that people build up in order to professionalize it. And I'd like to sort of relax that a little bit, and so many people have, I've heard the comments of like, well, what that guy's doing, I could do that. And my response is, you should definitely do it, and when you want to, come back here and I'll give you a gig, because that's really how you grow the community again. The more people understand it, the more they have personal experience with music making at any level, the more they're going to appreciate music when they hear it. It's pretty simple. I don't know anybody who said, I've heard enough music in my life, I don't need to hear anymore.
Yeah, yeah. You just gave me an idea. Um, I wonder if I could actually get it going, but like an improvisation night that would invite all people to come in, like kind of a
Sure.
drum circle thing, but an improv.
Right. Yeah, there's been a few instances of that, and I think one person that you could really uh, rope into that would be Ellen Burr, because she led improvisational workshops with musicians. I wasn't fortunate enough to attend, but she has a great reputation in that regard, where the right blend of programmatic and spontaneity is essential to have a successful kind of interaction. Again, it's kind of like that baseline, right? You have to have something to build on.
Yeah,
So that would be an exciting thing to pursue, and maybe we can find a way to work on that together and rope in some folks like Ellen. Brad would be another, great asset. I mean, we know so many people. Vinny Golia, my God, he's been doing that at Cal Arts for how long now, right? So all these people, in this community have a lot to offer, and that's what excites me and keeps me, engaged.
yeah,
That new ideas can surface,
right.
but space, time, And, those are the two most important resources. And then, sometimes it takes a little money to grease the skids as well.
Yeah.
But I think we're also fortunate at this stage in at least in my life, to where the resources are not so scarce. I have maybe a little more time than I had when I was raising my daughter, and I have a little bit more money than I had, that I can throw a few bucks at something without feeling like, I'm going to pay for it later. And, and I have a little bit, so to help build something now that I'm in a position to do so, is, that's something that, it's an opportunity I'd rather not pass up. So.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. What a great conversation. Yeah. I think the gears are turning for both of us. So that's great.
This has not been your only series, right, over the years?
Pretty much. I mean, I was involved in the Independent Composers Association back in the 80s. In those days, the ecosystem was different because there was more arts grant money that was flowing that you could tap into. So it made an organization like the ICA actually, something that was viable. And I've never been motivated to like find the grant money, so maybe it's still out there, and maybe I'm just woefully ignorant, and maybe I'm passing up an opportunity there. But there are certainly people in our community who know their way around writing a grant and know where the money is, being doled out. But yeah, personally, no, I was involved in the ICA. I did one series in the early 90s because I had access to a theater back in the days when I was working with the Actors Gang. They had rented a theater to do a performance, and they had one dark night every week for 6 weeks or so. And so I was able to do a thing there. That was a long time ago. Some of the same people who are performing at Vernacular performed there. So that's shows you the longevity and the stamina that people have in this city when it comes to doing the experimental and resolutely unpopular creative acts. So yeah, I think Vinny was a part of that, and is a part of this. So Stuart was definitely a part of that. So we're going back decades. I don't want to say how many decades exactly, but
It was a while back there.
yeah, it was a while back.
I remember going to see Vinny. God, I don't know. Let's see, how old am I? So, 40 years ago, like when he would have his orchestra.
Uh-huh.
Well, we call it an orchestra, but it was improvisational.
Sure.
He was the leader. I remember sitting in the audience with Scott Yanow, the jazz critic, and
Mhm.
we would just be sitting there in awe, because he was so bold and great. Well, and that brings me to mind to that series that lasted for a minute, longer than a minute, in Eagle Rock, the Alex Klein, right?
Right.
Good series.
They got up to over 3 decades worth of monthly performances.
30 years.
I think so. I actually kind of sketched out a few milestones in terms of the way the scene has evolved and the places that have made it popular or possible. So Vinny goes all the way back to the mid and late 70s at the Century City Playhouse, and a lot of folks who played there, are still active on the scene. Bobby Bradford being one of them. I think he and John Carter played there. Bobby had a club called the Little Bighorn in Pasadena, which is next to the Ice House for a while. And then it kind of shifted and moved into, like, in the 80s, there was a lot of activities around art galleries. And again, that's because, I think primarily because grant money was flowing, and the art gallery people seemed to know how to get the money, and they sort of befriended a lot of the musicians and, hosted things. But Craig Grady, when he ran the ICA, did, a lot of our performances were art galleries like the Wall & Boyd and Oranges and Sardines. And then another huge milestone was when Nels Cline established New Music Mondays at the Alligator Lounge. And I wish I knew the dates that bracketed that activity, but that was a very fertile period where usually three performances every Monday night, but the last one was always Nels. And again, speaks to my contention that the more you play in front of people, the better you get. And it really, catapulted Nels's creativity, and his band was so good by the time, a few years into that. I mean, with Nels, it's never not going to be good. And then there was some folks who I kind of dropped out of a lot of activity when my daughter was, being born and young. But Line Space Line was another sort of gallery storefront where a lot of great stuff happened. And then Rocco Samazi, who does the festival, he had several venues that kept people busy, playing.
Yeah, Rocco's, and also he consulted the Blue Whale.
Right. And then, the Blue Whale, I think we're still all sort of hurting from the loss of that. So hoping that, like I said, we need a network of venues because all of them are going to be a little bit different and have a little bit different curatorial slant, as well as what they're able to offer audiences and musicians, right? So everything from the bare carpet of the Battery bookstore to Red Cat, all that whole spectrum, really we should understand and be able to effectively curate, because it's all part of the community, right?
Yeah.
Sun Space was another key place, but as you know, it was remote. It was small, but once you got inside the door, it was magical, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always been, water seeks its level. There's always going to be a place for this, and the conditions change, and the emphasis might change about what can be performed and how ambitious you can be, or what whether or not you can buy a beer or have to bring your own, right?
Yeah.
But the people are resilient.
Yeah.
The people keep bringing great music no matter what.
Robert Jackson is making a few comments. He said Jeff Gautier had kryptonites. That's right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And Robert, he said he booked Fat Tuesdays in Fado Do and Ear Orchard at the Cafe Club Tropical many years ago. I remember that.
Yeah, those were in my lost years when I was bouncing a baby instead of playing the bass. So, but yeah, to my point, yeah, somebody steps up, and makes something happen.
Well,
And
how about have you heard of these guys? Jazz is Dead. Have you heard of those guys?
Someone mentioned that to me. So yes, I've heard, but I don't know exactly
They're a
what I
very
remember about.
mysterious, I think, but
Oh,
there are
cool.
these two, at least two guys, two musicians, and somehow they're related to a hair salon and a record store. And I'm not sure if this is a together thing. I think it might even be in Highland Park somewhere.
Okay, I think I might know the place you're thinking of because I think I've walked past and kind of went, oh, that's interesting.
So anyway, so they created this label or something, Jazz is Dead. They've combined some of the older musicians like Henry Franklin, for instance, who's 85 or something,
Yeah, sure.
and with some newer musicians, and they create these events in town and out of town where they like sell out to young, well, to a mixed age crowd. And I've been to like a Brazilian one where they produced Milton Nascimento here, and it's very interesting. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
I'd like to get to know those folks. I'll have to look them up.
yeah, it's interesting. And that brings me to just comment on places like the York and
Hmm.
PA and the 11, I think, what is it called? It's in Pasadena, the 1870 bar. I mean, these are bars that have, I would say more, a little more music like the Blue Whale would normally have, kind of um,
Yeah,
modern jazz that crosses boundaries, but it's not, I wouldn't really call it what we're talking about, new improvisational music, but still that's what it's kind of
yeah. I think we're all part of the same community in a sense, and there's a lot more crossover,
yeah.
uh, than you know. I mean, that's the thing that about musicians is that they typically don't want to limit themselves, and if somebody's throwing down boundaries, it's usually for marketing reasons, right? And if a
Yeah.
musician's limiting themselves for that, along those lines, it's usually because uh, they're acting out of fear or frustration. But we've had Dan Rosenboom, for example, and he's somebody that I'd say, I mean, his music is very. I think it qualifies as experimental, but it he's appropriate for the Whale or the ETA kind of
Right, right.
a little bit more. Tina Raymond,
Yeah, yeah,
she's been a frequent visitor. So yeah, I love that. I love those people. I love having them come in. I don't want to make them the only people that we present by any stretch. And I would actually like to sort of be mixing it up a little bit more so that the Dan Rosenbooms and the Joe Bizes of the world are kind of sharing the stage at some point and trying to figure out how to connect with one another. That would be pretty exciting from my perspective.
yeah,
So
that'd be great. John Diversa comes to mind because I'm a John Diversa fan, and his small group is last time I saw them, they were at ETA, and it was just divine. It was kind of like watching Benny Maupin. This I recognize the songs because they are the songs that John has been playing for years, but the band was experimental with the song, and
uh-huh.
it took me to places and they utilized the different qualities of music, the rhythm and the harmonies, and it was just delicious, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So he's another person, John Diversa, who comes to LA and like, and
Where
plays.
does he come from when he comes?
He's now living in Florida. He's
Oh, okay. So
head of
that's,
the music department at Frost, I think, or one of those schools. By the way, Breeze mentioned that your compositions, he's question mark, your compositions in the Acrefoot days. Now, Acrefoot, I remember that name. Why?
well,
Was that Brad?
because you're friends with Brad. So that was a quartet with Brad, Karu Mansour singing, the amazing Carrie Foss on guitar, and myself on bass. And we started out as an improvisational combo, but we evolved into a sort of strange elliptical songwriting unit. And we put out 2 records. The second of those 2 records is the thing I hand to people most frequently, because it's one of the things I'm most proud of. So thanks for bringing that up, Breeze. Let me toot that Acrefoot horn, and also say some great things about Karu, who we haven't mentioned, but
Fantastic.
I've been trying to coax her
Oh,
back on stage,
he's fantastic.
and Carrie, who is a slightly shadowy figure on the scene, because I guess because he doesn't usually opt to work as a leader, so he's usually sort of he's everybody's secret weapon, you
Oh,
know. Thing about Carrie is, when you enlist him in your project, you're going to get something that you absolutely did not expect. So I have recently done a band with, do you know Joe Berardi?
I know the name. That's all.
Yeah, so Joe's magnificent drummer, percussionist, multi-instrumentalist, and Carrie, and a young lion named Ted Taffero, who had a wonderful band called Snow Nerds. But the 4 of us, we have a band where we only improvise, and we never get together except to perform. So the rule of thumb is, we only perform, we don't rehearse. The other rule of thumb is we have rejected every name that we've come up with. So I think we're settling on calling it TTBF, which is just initialism. So yeah. So again, it just speaks to the depth of the talent pool here, or the breadth of it. I don't know if it's deep and broad. And again, the idioms don't make that much difference to the musicians. Most people are excited to play many different types of music. I think, a network of venues that recognizes that and supports that would be poised for even bigger success, right? So, supporting some novel combinations of people. And, when I talk to people about booking, usually it's one person reaching out to me, and they want to know like what they should bring, who they should invite to play with, or whatever. And I'm surprised at how cautious people are, and that's the one thing I'd like to sort of free up, is like, think of the wildest thing you could imagine doing and bring it, and we'll see how it goes. I would rather do that than, everybody wants to, have success. Nobody wants to fail spectacularly on stage, but so far nobody has. That's the thing, is that I think that has more to do with with the environment that you create. And I think I've been able to, through good fortune and a small amount of insight, create an environment where musicians are able to let go of all those, ancillary concerns and really focus on making good music when they show up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Gary Mraz, actually gave us a post of Acrefoot on Bandcamp, Extraordinary Room.
Yeah, that's our second album.
Yeah. Okay. So Green Tea Nightmare.
I'm going to disappear for 1 minute.
Okay.
Well, I've heard it before.
I'm going to play a little bit of each. That was Kaoru singing. And I thought she played piano, but it wasn't actually playing piano. She was doing loops. And her singing was totally improvisational. I'm assuming this record is like that, but maybe not, because they're I don't know. We'll ask DARYL when he comes back. This is also her artwork. I've had her do artwork for me, and she's done wonderful. That's one of them. Here's Extraordinary Room. A little bit of that. I think it's probably, here we go.
You're doing a little needle dropping there?
Yeah, just
Okay.
taking a taste.
Sure.
Did you name these before or after the recordings?
Well, the record was a long time in the making, so much of that stuff had been played live before and already had names.
Okay.
But some of them didn't.
Yeah.
So I think Green Tea Nightmare probably was named after we recorded it.
So they were songs.
The way that the band worked was often we'd start with the germ of an idea. And Karu, I think this is the way a lot of lyricists work. She had a notebook of pieces that, she would assemble her lyrics out of her notebook, and a lot of times that was what lent the title to the piece, most of the time, I think. So
yeah, I remember like going up to her one time, or I guess early when I had seen her, and saying, "Oh, what, you play piano really well." She said, "I'm not playing piano." It's like, what are you doing? She's looping, and
yeah,
and her singing was improvisational. I was like, that's a level of ability that's really an amazing thing. Now, what about Moonville? Breeze sent me this on Moonville.
Yeah, that's a trio with Breeze, myself, and Haskell Joseph on guitar, who's another sort of secret weapon. You know, not that Breeze isn't a weapon, but he's not a secret. He's one of the most prevalent, prominent exponents of drums in the community.
Okay, can I hear fluff with a fork?
Sure.
Okay.
This is definitely a case where the titles came after the recordings.
Ah,
So this was an all improvisational record that we did over at Tony Green's studio in Mount Washington. And Tony's another great musician, bassist in his own right, who happens to be a great engineer and a terrific bassist. And Tony and Breeze are on the next Vernacular show, supporting the Scott Eustace trio.
when is that?
March 6th, so a week from today. It'll be Scott Eustace with Breeze and Tony, and I think a guest vocalist or spoken word artist named Silva Nahas, who I don't know. So it's always
You do it every 2 weeks, right?
yeah, it's first and third
Oh.
Mondays officially, although some months have a fifth Monday in them, so I'm trying to snag them where I can. And then the other group on that night, we've mentioned Ellen Burr.
Yeah.
So this is a quartet called the Present Quartet with Jeff Schwartz, who you probably know.
Why do I know his name?
He runs a series out of the Santa Monica Library. He's had a lot of great, usually a lot of times visiting artists, but so Jeff is a classical and jazz and new music bassist. So he's pretty formidable. And Charles Sharp, who does one of the trilogy radio show segments at KXLU. Again, you know, another outlet for new music that's been going for years and years. So, and Anne LeBaron, who I believe is associated with Cal Arts on the faculty there. So it's bass, flutes, woodwinds, and harp. So we don't get too many harpists coming through, so I like to snag them when I can. So I'm happy that Anne will be joining us. So
That sounds like a packed house.
I
Awesome.
hope I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it starts at what time?
At 8.
8, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually $15 or does it vary?
Uh, we ask for $10 as the baseline. We of course are happy that a lot of people see fit to donate more. Um, we don't want to turn anyone away. So, that's our bottom line. And a lot of times, I mean, the bar doesn't have a lot of foot traffic, but sometimes people don't know that we're going to be there and they just wanted to come in and have a drink. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to turn away anybody's business, and the bar benefits from that,
Yeah.
uh, even if and the musicians benefit as well. Chances we've had more than a few times people who have come in just because they wanted some refreshment, stay and then hunt me down and donate, uh,
Oh,
after they've heard the music because they liked what they heard. So
nice.
yeah, yeah, it's great. And yeah, we do get a lot of repeat visitors, people who showed up because they knew somebody who was playing or heard about this thing that was happening, and are starting to become regulars. So you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah. And the environment actually is like Kulak's. It's kind of eclectic and like a used clothing store or furniture store, and which makes a very comfortable hang.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also a great sounding room. I think you'll enjoy singing there because it's got a natural reverb that it's warm and kind of gives the sound a nice glow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can't wait. Gary Fukushima is like one of my favorite musicians ever. He's got a real ability to have a freedom on a flow, and rhythmically, harmonically, and he has a really vast view. You know, he's really yeah, and he's a great person. You know.
that's the things that great people is, to me, it's like that's that's what really is rewarding. So you get to share the stage or watch the stage and see people whose humanity comes out through their music, and that to me is the big reward. And I get to hear musicians who I don't know yet, so there's this
Yeah.
element of discovery for me that you know when people like us who know each other or start to get to know each other, and then all of a sudden my circle's expanded, right? Because all the musicians that and are connected with are now connected to me.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely. By the
so
way,
it's
Scott
exciting.
Scott said, I've heard someone say it's like being in a David Lynch movie.
The huh. Well, it's not like being in Eraserhead, I would say. Maybe some of the later ones, but yeah, I think maybe like a David Lynch movie without this sense of dread and foreboding, because it's pretty relaxed and comfy there. So
That's great. Um, let's see. We've touched on a lot of stuff. We have about 10 more minutes if we want, or not, whatever. I'm open. But
yeah,
what else would you like to talk about? Would you like to talk about something we haven't touched on?
boy, I'm not sure what's left that we haven't. Are there any more comments or questions that we should cover?
Not yet.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
I wonder, I should show you a little bit of Scott Robinson. Let me
cool.
find him
Yeah.
because I think you would find him, not Scott Robinson Honda though. No, not Scott. Woodwinds. Okay, Scott Robinson. Um, he has this really interesting site. And let's see, let me see if I can find it in my address book. Maybe I've put down everything so I don't forget. No. No, it looks like I didn't. Scott Robinson, avant-garde. Yes, we know that. I'm just going to show you a little bit. So that's Scott Robinson there.
Okay.
And but he has this really interesting site, which it's not really taking me to. Let's see. Wonder if it might be under Wikipedia. Let's see that. So, well, I don't see. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Science-Sonic Laboratories. You'll appreciate this. So this is his kind of thing. So he's created this basis called Science-Sonic Laboratorics. And so I'm pretty sure this is home. Then there's music CDs, and he has like a huge list, like you guys or Brad Dutz, just tons of improvisational
Uh-huh.
music, and it's really, great people.
Yeah.
Here's some recognized as certified space imagination products. And wow, we're donating a percentage to the Space Foundation Fund. I mean, it's real space. And here's about Science-Sonic. Not just a record label or a facility. It's a resource for you, the adventurous listener. Anyway, so you're seeing what this is, right?
Yeah.
And it would be, oh well, speaking of Vinigolia. Is that
The names in the fine print. So, it's a, you could tell there he is with Vinny in the middle. Yeah.
this almost looks like Joe Lovano, but I don't think it is. I'm not sure who that is.
With some big horns, though.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And there they all are playing.
Well, I'll definitely have to check that out. That's exciting to.
There you go. A Brad Dutz experience, right? Look at the size of that horn.
I know.
And he plays all kinds of horns.
Marshall Allen up there at the top.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and this is in his, I believe this is his garage that's remade into his studio. So anyway,
yeah,
I have showed you Scott Robinson.
That's great. Just quickly in our waning moments, I could talk about some of the other folks that are coming up, because we actually have booked out quite a bit in advance.
Yeah.
So on the 6th, as we mentioned, it's the Present Quartet with Jeff Schwartz, Ellen Burr, Charles Sharp, and Ann LeBaron, and then the Scott Hustis Trio, which features Bree Smith and Tony Green, spoken word by Silva Nahas. So that's in a week. And then in 3 weeks, Cathy Segal-Garcia bringing The Moment. So that's going to be terrific. And I remember so Gary Fukushima,
Chuck
Manning,
Jamie Rosen,
and Brad's going to be sitting in with you.
Yep.
And then Brad's going to do a set with Ben Rosenboom. And I'm not sure if there's another musician going to be added to that. On April 3rd, fine percussionist, composer, improviser Nathan Hubbard, coming from the San Diego area. And he'll be joined by Vinnie Golia and Stuart Liebig. That'll be a kind of a record release party because I think they've got a CD that's coming out. Also visiting artists. So it's like the night of visiting artists because Philip Greenleaf, I don't know if you know Philip, he's a native of the San Fernando Valley, but makes his home in the Bay Area, and is an amazing composer and woodwind player and improviser. So, and a hell of a good guy. All these people are great people. So, you know, even if you don't like their music, just show up and smile at them because they deserve it. And then on April 17th, we've got a kind of an interesting bill in the fact that it's a more song-oriented night. We've had the Wiebe Gerritsen, Ralph Gorodetsky band before, and we're having them again. And
I know them. They're good.
yeah, Weeba's songs, Wiebe and Ralph write the songs, I think, for the most part. And yeah, they're witty, interesting, and that's an example of, you know, for me, I'm not sticking to one particular diet here. I think a lot of stuff should be on the menu. And but what you do get with Wiebe and Ralph's band is, you know, honesty, transparency, creativity that exists in that moment for those people in that space. It's not canned in any way.
Yeah.
It's not contrived.
Right.
And that's what appeals to me. And there's a really interesting band, also a little bit more of a rock band format called Tune to Me. That's going to be on that bill as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much farther down the calendar because then it gets a little bit less definitive. We've got things fluctuating past that, but those are all nailed down. So we're nailed down to the end of April, and I think
I just wrote down the 1st and 3rd
well,
Mondays and the occasional question mark on the 5th.
Yeah, well, we're Vernacular New Music on Facebook and on Instagram. So find us there, and then you'll be bombarded with you know, posts about our upcoming events. And so, you know, that's the tried and true method of keeping up with us. And I hope you will. I hope everyone will. So.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'll meet you all there because it's fun. And I'm going to be there the 20th anyway, but I will meet you there. I'm going to try and go to the next one, actually. Thanks very much for spending the time, DARYL.
Oh, you know, this was really, it was a lot of fun. And, you know, you're a good talker. So I never ran out of things to say because you always brought up something that was, you know, interesting to respond to or spawned another idea. And that was, you know, made the time fly by for me. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I want to talk about some ideas, and you've definitely inspired some ideas in me, and which, yeah, I have a good one that I really want to find out. It has to do with, you know, like an improvisational, I don't know, it's not really a class, is it? It's a invitational or something. I'm not sure what it is, but
symposium,
yeah, maybe.
But sure, let's you know, maybe have a conversation on that front and see what arrives out of it. It would be really exciting to, you know, the more people that are working on trying to grow this community, you know, the happier we'll all be. And there are so many people who are members of this community that don't know they are members yet, because they don't know that this was the music that they've been missing in their life all these years. So those are the people that you know, I want to connect with soon.
I'm just gonna tell a little bit of what's happening this week before we get off.
Yay!
Tomorrow I have an archive of Luis Conti because my husband's getting a I always forget the name of that. It's an operation for a hernia operation. So I have to pay attention to him because I'm a good wife. And then the next day we have a live, very interesting guy. Talk about a guy um, who is forwarding music. His name is David E. Richardson, and he is a filmmaker, and he's actually somebody mentioned one of the musicians that he did a documentary on a little earlier, Simone Gubbiotti. But so he's done several documentaries, and he's loved jazz since he was born, and he wants to further it, and he's really a very interesting man. So we're going to talk on Wednesday, and then we're going to have archives the rest of the week with Gina Eckstein, who is Billy Eckstein's daughter, singer, and Meredith D'Ambrosio, who's an exquisite, subtle jazz singer. Jim and Cathy Riddle from the East Coast. Jim is a great pianist, and his wife is a great violinist. And then Frank Porosky, who is a New York-based statesman of big band and jazz horn and stuff. Also, if you're in Los Angeles, Thursday night we're going to do at Kulak's Brazil night, which we're trying to do it every first Thursday of the month, Brazil night. And the second, which will be next week, as long as we're talking about new music, Vinny Golia will be here next week at Kulak's on the Thursday. So if you want to hear like the king of new music, come see Vinny Golia at Kulak's. It's really, really great. And it's not expensive at all. $15 gets you in the door. Also this week, I am singing at Catalina's
Bravo.
with a killer band, Jimmy Brandley, Kerry Frank, Mitchell Long, and Ahmet Sezin. We're just going to have a great time, jazz and Brazilian. And these guys are the guys who will stretch because everybody's trusting each other, and they're great players, not just great people. So that's what's happening in LA and beyond. And thanks again, DARYL TEWES, for being on. And everybody will meet over at Vernacular's Oracle on the first and third Monday nights, downtown LA.
Thanks so much, Cathy.
Okay, DARYL. Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.